Mr. Davis's class. My name is Dr. Wendy Vanderveld, or just Dr. V for short, and I am an historical monstrologist. Now, monstrologist is somebody who studies monsters. It's also kind of a made-up word, but I do have my PhD in medieval and Renaissance studies from Boston University, where I did study lots of monsters and fairies. So we're going to start by discussing some monsters and then zoom right on over to the fairy realm because, hey, who doesn't want to spend time with the fairies? Today, the term monster can mean many different things to many people, but in the Middle Ages, monsters were believed to be actual beings and creatures living in far-off, distant lands.
That is the Psalter World map, followed by the Hereford Mappamundi. And here we have some kind of Cyclops giant and a Penody. And next we have a Blemmy coming up. It's maybe going to get some water or something. And a unicorn, a very magical creature, followed by a Cynocephali, a barking doghead, a giant sciopod, and a little person, and Master Yoda.
Medieval maps depicted these far-off lands and exotic creatures and races, and the monsters themselves were often known as the Plinian races. They were named after a Roman scholar named Pliny the Elder, who was around about 77 AD, which is also 77 of the Common Era, until Pliny the Elder wanted to see a volcano. So, in 79 AD, when Vesuvius was going off, Pliny the Elder was like, I wonder what an erupting volcano looks like. He went to see, and then bye-bye Pliny the Elder. Pompeii had better days. Nonetheless, the creatures that Pliny wrote about were well known into the Middle Ages and beyond. There were all kinds of monsters. There were the troglodytes, which dwelled in caves. There were cyclops with one eye. There were Amazons, and there were the sciapods with one big foot, and the Dinestrae. The Dinestrae had a lion's head and a human body, and they were particularly coy because they could learn and decipher any language. So when a traveler was in a foreign land, they could speak in that traveler's language and lure them over by saying like, hey, Jonathan, did you watch Octonauts last night? What'd you think of Captain Barnacle's decision? And then you, being Jonathan, would go over and you would get eaten by the Dinestrae because they tricked you. So the lesson there is, if somebody has a lion's head, they might eat you.
Not only were the Dinestrae polyglots, which means they could read and speak many languages, but they also knew personal information and random facts about any individual traveler. How they knew that you were watching Octonauts and not Bubble Guppies? I don't know. They just knew things, like the CIA.
There were also the Blemmy, which had no head at all, but they had a face on their belly, and the Penody, which were one of my favorite medieval monsters because the Penody had big old ears that they could fly with. They could hide in them when they were feeling shy, and then they could just fly away. Kind of like Dumbo, but not nearly as sad.
Just a few of Pliny's monsters right here. This is a sciapod with their one big foot. This is a cyclops, as you can see that one eye on the cyclops head. Here is a very small two-headed person standing next to a no-headed person. This is a Blemmy or Blemmi. As you can see, they don't have an actual head, but they do have a face on their torso and abdominal area. And this is Mr. Davis at the beach when he hasn't shaved over the summer. This is an actual picture of him I took last August.
Have you ever heard of Bigfoot? This Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, is wearing a Santa hat. I'm not sure why. It's possible he was quarantined right after the holidays. I don't know. It's hard to know with Bigfoot. He's evasive. He's a cryptid. A cryptid is a creature unidentified by science, as opposed to, say, a wolf or a moose or an alpaca, which is a creature that is identified by science and sometimes put on Peruvian scarves. Now you might ask, can a Bigfoot be put on a scarf? Yes, but that doesn't mean it's a known species.
Now, being from the Pacific Northwest, you've probably heard of Bigfoot, but did you know that wildmen and hairy humanoid creatures were depicted on maps and in art and literature long before our contemporary Bigfoot? There are some medieval manuscripts which even show a knight fighting what appears to be a Sasquatch. What?
Here's a knight fighting a hairy man from a manuscript in the 1300s. And here is Bigfoot with his Santa hat. And I mean, you tell me, the resemblance seems relatively clear. A lot of people believe Bigfoot or Sasquatch may actually just be another creature that's misinterpreted when seen in the woods. Like, say you're camping or hiking and then you're like, oh my goodness, there's a scary monster. And it could be a scary monster, or it's possible it could be something like a grizzly bear rearing up on its legs. I would just like to acknowledge my lighting change before going on. Either that or I'm currently turning into a werewolf. I won't tell you until after the video. Also, it's possible I'm a vampire. But back to monsters. Misidentification of a known animal may be one explanation for what the Plinian races truly were. I apologize for that. There was a lighting change with the moon causing me to go partial werewolf. So now you know the truth about me, a werewolf, with some vampire traits. However, the truth about the Plinian races may be that they were just misinterpreted creatures. When people traveled and saw something new for the first time, like a gorilla, they may misinterpret it as a half-human, half-dog-like creature, or when they saw a white rhinoceros, they may have thought, ooh, look, there's a unicorn. Because they look so much alike. In addition to misidentifying living creatures, the ancients would have found bones and fossils of dinosaurs and mastodons and other animals that appeared to be monsters or giants or any number of creatures. In The First Fossil Hunters, Dr. Adrian Mayer discusses the mastodon skull and how it had one big hole in the center where the trunk would have gone. However, an ancient discovering that skull may have identified it as a cyclops with a socket for one big eye. Such a skull may have been interpreted as evidence that Cyclops did in fact once roam the earth, or the skull may have been the impetus for legends about the Cyclops in the first place. So misinterpretation combined with the imagination and fabrication may account for many of Pliny's monsters, along with certain cryptids we know of today, such as Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and the Kraken. However, most myths and legends have at least some grain of truth that was the impetus for such stories, and that's what I, as an historical monstrologist, find fascinating to study. To go over a few things we've learned, don't go near an erupting volcano. That's a big no. That's out. Even if your friends say that that's cool to go, it's not. You're gonna get burned. Also, somebody with a lion head may eat you. That's a good one to remember. However, they may not. Xenophobia is the fear of other races and cultures, and it accounted for many monstrous depictions. So, don't be scared of people you don't know just because you're unfamiliar with their country or land. Learn about them. But if they have a lion head, do stay away. That's just a good rule. You can give air hugs maybe, or a high five, or write the Dinestria letter, because as I mentioned before, they're polyglots, so they speak many languages. Just whatever you do, please, and I mean this sincerely, please do not put the Dinestry in a magic show in Vegas. Bad idea. Just don't get eaten. Also, the anthropophagi and possibly a Blemmy might eat you. The Pinoti's safe. Go up, say hi to a Pinoti. Ask for a ride on their double ears. I mean, that might be fun. Like a hang glider. Other things to know, a rhinoceros may or may not be a unicorn. This necklace is from Transylvania, meaning I probably am part vampire and part werewolf. Also, I can't verify this as fact, but I have a suspicion that Bigfoot may be Santa Claus. They may in fact be the same person, only because you don't really encounter either of them often. They're evasive, and they're both wearing red hats with those little white dangly balls. So, science. Thank you so much for joining me for Monstie Time today, and I hope I can appear again soon to talk about the fairies.